What has been going on with Team Envy? Well, that's what we're about to find out, as they're our next team on the list for our 32 on 32. And I had a chance to interview and kind of pick the brain of Justin Silly from Team Envy as far as what's been going wrong for Team Envy and how they've been able to try to correct things moving forward to World Champs. Welcome back, COD fans. Good to see you guys. Again, we'll be dealing with Team Envy here today, one of our CWL spots that have been looking a little bit questionable since their roster changes. A very hectic kind of continuation, I guess, of that and what was it, about 17 when it came down to their search and destroy. I had a chance, like I mentioned, to talk with Silly about what's been going wrong with their search and destroy and how they've been able to make it actually one of their best modes. At least by score lines alone, friends, it's become one of their best modes since the roster change period. So we'll take a look into that. But let's get things started with this Team Envy squad and really just look at what their pool is. Because honestly, it's a dangerous one. Pool D is where they'll find themselves, and it'll be with Reciprocity in the mix, with Sage Esports and Legend Status. A team that honestly, both of those two open teams really can make some waves and have made waves, looking to do the same against a team like Team Envy. And again, I say this a lot with these videos, but the teams that are sitting in the CWL spot as the number 2 seed in these top 4 pools specifically, they should be feeling that there's a major target on their back, because all 3 teams are looking at these games as must wins. Reciprocity says, hey, we beat Team Envy, we should be good to get ourselves in the winners bracket. Sage Esports, Legend Status, kind of the same thing. If they're going to be able to get themselves a win, they have to be able to do it versus a team like Team Envy. And I will say Reciprocity have some vulnerabilities, so there's potential of them possibly being upset, but Team Envy is the one that's going to have their targets kind of pinned up for them when it comes to everybody in this pool. So how do they deal with that most properly? Taking a look at some of the statistics that this squad has been able to face so far this year. Again, it was a pretty strong start for them as they went through the PLQ to get into the CWL, and they did so relatively easily and obviously successfully. At Fort Worth, they finished top 12, which was a bit of a disappointment, I think, for a lot of people, but not the worst case scenario by any stretch of the imagination. You get to London, where they were able to finish 4th through that incredible losers bracket run. And then things started to hit the fan. Top 16 at Anaheim, not winning a single map. Same story at Miami, as they only played 1 game. But again, it did not go super well for them. An 0-3 loss to UYU. So technically, as far as major events go, this squad is 0-5 with no map wins. That's not what you want whatsoever. But I will say, as you take a look at their statistics in the bottom end, the hard point, not so great. The control, not so great. It's their search and destroy that's gotten a lot better. Since the roster changes have happened, they're 2-3 in the map, in the mode rather specifically, 4.33 to the 5.5 that they give up. Again, what that essentially means is that their losses sometimes are bad, but generally they keep them close, and their wins are also relatively close. This is a much better average than what they were pinning up just previously. And technically, as you take a look at this squad as a whole, this is actually a better overall differential than what they were carrying previously to this. So this is definitely a step in the right direction if you're Team Envy. It just comes down to what's going on in the hard point. They're not doing super well. They're a minus 46 differential in the score averages per map that they face on hardpoint, and then they have a 1.4 average to the 2.2 average when it comes to control, which is not awful, but it's not good. I'll say that much, to say the least. And again, you wonder about some of the moving pieces that have been kind of introduced to this lineup as you're dealing with, again, a very, very steady roster of players, but Decimate has seemed to be kind of figuring out how to play alongside players like Gunless and like Assault, who's new to the mix. And to be honest, Assault has actually looked like one of the more solid pieces here, but again, you throw him on AR, you put him in the back, he should be okay. For me, it just comes down to how are you going to be able to figure out the duo capability of Aches and Gunless, and then again, up front, Silly and Decimate with the SMGs. That's what they were running previously. Now, I had a chance to sit down and talk with Silly at a little bit longer length as far as some of his thoughts about Gunless, how this team has shaped up since Anaheim, and what they're hoping will go right for them when they get to World Champs. Joining me now is Justin, or Silly, from Team Envy. Sir, you've got my attention. This has been a heck of a road for Team Envy, obviously post-roster mania, and really since Anaheim. Obviously, that's probably not a memory we want to hold on to for so long, but improvements have been made through the last couple of weeks of the regular season, and then going into Miami. Of course, not the results you guys wanted, but kind of take me through the transition that's happened from Anaheim to looking forward to champs.
Basically, Anaheim till now, we've been on kind of like a a tough road. We haven't been winning much, but we've been switching roles a little bit. I've been getting better with the grapple, and we're really hoping that we can make something happen at champs.
Now, one of the biggest struggles that you guys have had is obviously the search and destroy. It's a conversation that is probably pretty tough to avoid at this point in time. But like we mentioned, there were some big steps that have been made in the search and destroy department. A couple of 5-6s in there, whether they were losses or wins, and a 6-4 versus Midnight. So what has been that kind of key to turn around what was obviously a past that is worth forgetting in the search and destroy department to what is now potentially one of your best game modes as a team?
The same exact thing happened last year. We were terrible at search and destroy around the same time of year, actually. And for some reason, I feel like it just starts to click for me and Pat and Adam around champs time for some reason. And I think if S&D is our best game mode going into champs, we're in pretty good shape because I think our respawn is improving drastically.
Now, pool-wise, you guys are an interesting one because you're dealing with the side of Reciprocity, but also a very solid team in Sage Esports and kind of the upstarters and a lot of the hidden talent that's in Legend status. For Reciprocity in specific, this is a team that you guys have a pretty extensive experience up against, dating back to Reciprocity at Anaheim, and of course, most recently just before Miami. So when you're taking a look at a squad like Reciprocity and the close history that you've shared versus them, and also these open bracket teams, what are some of the biggest considerations when you're looking at your pool as a whole?
We definitely like our pool a lot. I think the only other pool we could have been dropped into is the FaZe pool, and we think we have a lot better chance of beating Rec than we do FaZe, at least in pools. And the open teams, I think we should beat. But the last 2 times we play Reciprocity, other than Anaheim, we've lost 6-5 last map, and we haven't been in good shape. Obviously, haven't been closing on anything.
Right.
So if we play a little better than we did before, I think we'll be able to beat them.
When it comes to preparing for the event as a whole, I mean, there's probably a lot of internal things that are going on, but how much do you dedicate time to preparing for opponents versus cleaning up what you guys are already working on in-house?
I definitely think it's more time just working on ourselves right now. I mean, I'm probably the only grapple player at champs that hasn't been running it for 9 months. So, I mean, most of my regimen is practicing for 10 hours a day and trying to figure that out. We leave a lot of our VODs and preparing for the other team up to our coach, Bevels. And he'll kind of set that up for us.
So with Bevels, when it comes down to obviously having him as kind of an oversight, but when you're also dealing with a newer addition in Gunless, who brings obviously a healthy amount of experience to the table, what kind of an influence does that individual player have on the dynamic that was already kind of being built by Bevels previously with Envy, and how much do they kind of work together to make sure that there is one cohesive mindset in this team?
I definitely think our mindset now compared to how it was before on our Anaheim team is a lot better. I feel like with Pierce and me and him being extremely good friends in real life, and all of us kind of being friends on this team now has definitely brought a good team dynamic and good communication all around.
Fair enough. Final question for you guys, as far as just general expectations go for the event. What do you guys think? I mean, obviously, outside of being a consistent team individually, what are the other things you're kind of hoping might just turn up in your favor when it comes to World Championships when you get to that stage in that venue to, again, kind of reverse the spell that has been the top 16 finishes at Anaheim and Miami?
I mean, really, what we're just trying to make happen, the start of the road is getting first in our pool. We really just want to go 3-0, and I think if we gather that confidence after full play, we can definitely make it through the bracket.
Fair enough. A lot of expectations riding on it. Hopefully you guys find a nice little pep in your step when you guys get to champs. Thanks so much. I really do appreciate Justin taking it with me and taking a couple minutes. Thanks so much. You heard it from Silly, and again, a big shout out to him. We exchanged a number of kind of conversation points before and after the interview, and I think that it's definitely been a humbling experience for a lot of these players to come into the mix, having a losing record after the roster change or just before the roster change at Anaheim, and then be able to battle back like they were able to do during the cross div. Yes, it was a 1-3 technically as far as the win losses went, but a much closer set. They did go game 5 with Reciprocity, like I mentioned, and then of course the 0-3 loss. But again, that 0-3 loss at Anaheim that I just mentioned, not exactly the worst case scenario. 205, 250 on the hardpoint frequency, 4-6 on the search and destroy frequency, and then a 1-3 on the seaside control. So again, I think that it's not like you're sitting here as a full roster and looking at this pool saying, this is, if we don't get out of this, what's going to happen to us next year, because this roster is extremely talented. It just comes down to, will they be able to actually capitalize on the wins versus teams like Sage and like Legend Status? I think they'll be fine against a team like Legend Status. I am a bit concerned as far as what we've seen from Sage Esports, as far as what they might be able to offer to a team like Team Envy. But again, I have a lot of confidence in the fact that this roster is so much more experienced. A wealth of experience on this team comparatively to that of Sage. Just from the Pro League this year alone, you could even say that. The big question comes down to, will this team be good enough to potentially make a run at a #1 spot and maybe even close out this completely 3-0 or win a tiebreaker in a 2-1 scenario? I think it's possible, but I think it's a little bit more far-fetched than them just securing up a second spot. So that's the look as far as Team Envy goes. Thanks again for tuning in. If you guys are enjoying this content, please make sure you subscribe, and you're going to want to ring that notification bell, because these videos are going to be popping up all over the place at random times. So you want to get those notifications of when you need to be catching up on these teams, and hopefully you guys are able to take something away from it. So until the next one, hope you keep holding it down. Later. Bye-bye.